Tonight, what happened behind a closed-door meeting about the Prime Minister's future. Deliberations and confrontations in caucus.
We do need to change the leadership.
When you look divided, you look weak.
A lot of frank and open conversation.
On the eve of a Liberal policy pivot on immigration targets. A major rate cut by the Bank of Canada.
Canadians can breathe a sigh of relief.
But is it enough to revive the real estate market?
We just swore in General Kelly.
Plus, extraordinary revelations from Donald Trump's former chief of staff with just 13 days to go before the U.S. election.
He commented more than once that, that Hitler did some good things too.
New warnings, more Canadians are being exposed to higher levels of a radioactive gas inside their own homes. And crossing paths with a friendly face.
I can do anything, packing, anything, I'm able.
A newcomer turns to his community for help to achieve his dream.
All right, you know what it is. Bye-bye, thank you.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. We begin tonight with the clashes in the Liberal caucus and questions about the Prime Minister's future. A key takeaway of a 3-hour meeting today, during which members of his own party confronted Justin Trudeau about his leadership. The gathering took place behind closed doors, but as CTV's Judy Trin tells us, some of the details are now out in the open.
A standing ovation to mask internal division. In the morning, the Prime Minister arrived 1.5 hours early to prepare for a showdown in caucus.
We do need to change the leadership, but in the end, caucus majority will rule, and I'll be able to look in the mirror and say my piece.
About 24 Liberal backbenchers signed a letter calling for Justin Trudeau to step down. The plot has dominated headlines for nearly 2 weeks.
When you look divided, you look weak. There was another option for the 20 or so people, apparently, that signed a letter that could have had a private meeting with the Prime Minister.
Those not seeking re-election are the most vocal.
None of us are happy to be called garbage, but there are people there that want to run again, and they're nervous because of what polls are saying.
The drama unfolded over more than 3 hours behind closed doors. Sources tell CTV no letter was presented, but some MPs spoke openly about leadership change.
Caucus breaking, caucus breaking, caucus breaking.
A lot of listening, a lot of frank and open conversation. It was the first time that we discussed this.
When I have conversations in my riding, there are people that say, look, I might have certain concerns with the Prime Minister, might concerns with the agenda, but God, I don't like Pierre Poilievre.
This isn't a code red situation, and the Prime Minister can sure as hell handle the truth. And what was happening there, although it will remain confidential, is really about MPs telling the Prime Minister the truth.
Uncertainty lingers. A petition created by grassroots members is calling for a secret ballot vote in caucus and within the party on Trudeau's leadership.
The people in the ridings who pound the pavement, who knock on doors, who put up signs, who fundraise, who do the grunt work to elect Liberal MPs come election time, that they are asking for accountability.
But the Prime Minister is putting on a brave face for now.
The Liberal Party is strong and united.
After a day of high drama, it's unclear what has changed. Justin Trudeau is staying on, and the Liberal Party say they're united in taking on Pierre Poilievre, but have yet to release a plan. Omar.
All right, Judy, thank you. And joining us now is CTV's chief political correspondent, Vassy Kapelos, from the foyer of the House of Commons tonight. And Vassy, the MPs who want the Prime Minister out have given him a deadline to make a decision, but how much teeth does that deadline actually have?
Yeah, the deadline as circulated in that letter that essentially was bandied about prior to this actual meeting is October the 28th, so not far away at all. The question of teeth is a different one, and for me, the thing informing that is the consequences attached to it. So if the Prime Minister doesn't say he's going to go by that date, what happens? I spoke to 10 different MPs today, and they all had a somewhat different answer to that question. So that tells me they're not united around a consequence, which of course could impact the severity of the threat they're making.
Now, persistent questions about Justin Trudeau's leadership have the potential to take away from matters of policy if he does stay on as leader. How does he ensure his caucus stays united?
I think the question of unity is going to be a live one for a really long time until the question of his leadership is answered. But he is going to try to turn the page tomorrow with a very significant announcement around immigration. Permanent immigration levels are set to be reduced by 20%. That's a massive cut and a massive policy shift for this government. Whether it turns the page politically for them, of course, is a whole different story. Omar?
All right, we'll be tracking that tomorrow and look at the impact. Vashi, thank you. Cooling inflation is having an impact on the Bank of Canada's key interest rate. A 50 basis point reduction today brought the rate to 3.75%, the biggest cut since March 2020 in the early days of the pandemic. CTV's Michael Couture on what it means.
They're typically here 8:30. So.
As a partner in an excavation company, John Fleming depends on home builders starting projects. He thinks a fourth straight interest rate cut is good for business.
The trend in interest rates decreases. Cost of capital being what it is for builders, this is a good thing and gives them a little bit of confidence to maybe take on and get the next project started.
That's what the Bank of Canada governor hopes after acknowledging years of high inflation has been painful.
I think Canadians can breathe a sigh of relief.
The leadership at the central bank believes with inflation at 1.6%, Canadian consumers should start to see a difference.
It means that prices aren't going to keep going up, but every time you go to the grocery store, I'm sure you're feeling that fact that prices have come up.
Now, wages have gone up across the country, but not everyone is feeling it. It's why some economists are calling for even deeper rate cuts to hit the neutral rate of 2.75%.
So as hopefully the bank rapidly tries to take out these high interest rates that are now actively harming the economy, aren't serving a purpose on the inflation front.
A half percentage point cut to 3.75% should benefit people with variable mortgages or a line of credit. But some in the housing industry caution it won't lead to a rush of home buying.
The notion of a 50 points cut also clearly indicates weakness in the economy. So in a weak economy, it's not that common for people to go out and make potentially the biggest purchase of their lives.
Tiff Macklem says the plan is to cut rates even further if inflation remains in that 2% sweet spot. But he didn't indicate how deep of a cut might come in December. Omar?
All right, Mike, thank you. With less than 2 weeks to Election Day in the U.S., there are shocking new revelations tonight from a man who was once a part of Donald Trump's inner circle when he was in office. His former chief of staff says the former president lauded leaders who represented the worst of humanity. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin has the details.
We just swore in General Kelly.
It's an extraordinary move for a retired four-star general to break his silence about a former president. John Kelly was by Donald Trump's side, his longest-serving chief of staff who saw it all. Now with a stark warning about Trump, who praised Adolf Hitler.
Comments are more the ones that, that Hitler did some good things too.
And it wasn't just an offhand remark. Kelly told the New York Times and The Atlantic Trump wanted to rule like a dictator, saying, "I need the kind of generals that Hitler had." Kamala Harris seized on Kelly's comments, blasting the former president as unfit and dangerous.
Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable. And in a second term, people like John Kelly would not be there to be the guardrails. We know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power.
It's part of her argument to disqualify Trump, who regularly bashes Harris.
Does she drink? Is she on drugs? I don't know.
At a Georgia religious rally, Trump appealing to his base, promising to throw millions of immigrants out of the country.
Large numbers of terrorists are coming into our country. We're going to fix our country. We're going to close the borders first day, first hour, first minute.
Kelly joins a long list of military leaders and advisors ringing the alarm bells, troubled by Trump's recent comments about using the military against political opponents.
He's certainly an authoritarian, admires people who are dictators. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist.
The Trump campaign denies it all, suggesting General Kelly suffers from what they call Trump derangement syndrome.
Next week, Harris will deliver a speech at the National Mall, the same spot Trump made his remarks on January 6, before his supporters attacked the Capitol. Her closing argument, Omar, It's time to turn the page.
Joy Melvin in Washington, where officials are sounding the alarm over a potentially dangerous escalation in the Ukraine war. At least 3,000 North Korean troops are believed to be in Russia and could be deployed to fight.
If Russia is indeed forced to turn to North Korea for manpower, this would be a sign of weakness, not strength.
South Korean intelligence says these satellite images show the North Koreans are in Russia. The White House says the troops have traveled by boat to eastern Russia and are training at Russian bases. At least 5 people are dead and 22 injured in what Turkish officials are calling a terrorist attack at a state-run aerospace company near the capital of Ankara. CTV's Heather Wright has the details.
With their guns drawn, 2 people approached turnstiles at a Turkish aerospace and defense company this afternoon. Explosions and gunfire erupting at the state-owned complex, an attack that killed at least 5 people and injured nearly 24 more. According to reports, at least 2 militants came to the company headquarters outside of Ankara in a taxi. One of them blew themselves up. Turkey's president is in Russia for the BRICS conference and called the attacks terrorism. I especially want to thank you for your condolences, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said while meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. I condemn this heinous terrorist attack and wish God's mercy on our martyrs. While no group has immediately claimed responsibility for the attack, Turkey has faced similar acts of violence in the past. Today, the Interior Minister says officials believe it was likely carried out by the Kurdistan Workers' Party. When compared to previous similar attacks, we have a strong opinion that it is the PKK. Ali Yerlikaya says it will become certain once the identities of the attackers are determined. The PKK is an insurgent militant group classified as a terrorist organization by many countries, including Canada. Today, the White House condemned the attack.
While we don't yet know the motive or who is exactly behind it, we strongly condemn this act of violence.
Yesterday, one of President Erdogan's closest political allies said the head of the PKK could be released from prison if he ordered an end to the group's insurgency. But at this point, it's not clear if there's any connection between those comments and today's violence. Omar.
All right, Heather, thank you. The victim of an alleged mass rape in France orchestrated by her former husband took to the stand today, testifying against him and the 50 men accused of abusing her. So many of Giselle Pellicot's supporters showed up. Many were unable to enter court. The 72-year-old was allegedly drugged by her former husband, who invited dozens of strangers to rape her while unconscious for about a decade. Pellicot testified, "I've decided not to be ashamed. I've done nothing wrong," adding the men are the ones who must be ashamed. She insisted on a public trial to help other women and spur changes to French law, which does not currently include consent, so that all sex without consent would be considered rape. Back here at home, there are new signs tonight that more Canadians are being exposed to high levels of radon, a radioactive gas you can test for with a kit from some hardware stores or by a professional. CTV's Adrian Gobriel on the risk inside your own home.
Levels of radioactive gas are found in nearly every Canadian home.
Radon is a colorless and odorless gas.
And the second leading cause of lung cancer in Canada. A University of Calgary research team compiled radon readings from 75,000 urban and rural residential buildings. The countrywide study found an estimated 10.3 million Canadians are living in houses with high levels of radon.
Our radon levels and our exposure to that have simply gone up. So that's the thing that would alarm me the most, because we're existing in a time in Canada where 2 out of 5 people who get lung cancer, they're not due to tobacco.
Radon forms naturally when radioactive metals break down in rocks, soil, and groundwater. Exposure comes from breathing in the gas that seeps through the cracks and gaps in our homes.
When we inhale it, it increases the risk of developing lung cancer by causing DNA damage at the cellular level.
The last radon report was released in Canada more than a decade ago. In 2012, about 7% of homes had radon readings above Health Canada's guidelines. This year, that percentage has spiked to 17.8%.
What has changed is the way we've been building on top of the ground, retrofitting existing properties to make them more airtight, but without necessarily balancing the amount of fresh air they can intake and the stale air that they release. And if you don't balance that correctly, the house will make up the difference by sucking on the ground.
One way to combat radon is to have a reading done in your home. You can also have a system installed that removes the radioactive gas from your house. It takes about 1 to 2 days to complete that work and costs about as much as a smart TV. Adrian Gobriel, CTV News, Toronto.
Coming up.
How would you know it's fake? There should be repercussions.
Continuing our investigation into the profits made off charity. We have been uncovering deception in the donation bin industry this week, and tonight a revealing story of how a tracked toy elephant exposed a company that was masquerading as a charity. Here's W5's John Woodward.
Nazarene Sebastian was in a hospital in her native Philippines in 2021, diagnosed first with lung cancer, then with COVID-19.
I had cancer stage 2. I was doing my radiation. My mother passed away.
She says the experience humbled her. When she arrived in Canada, she vowed to pay her good fortune forward to kids in need. So several times a year, she buys toys to ship back home.
It will make them happy, you know, when a kid receives it. When you give something like a toy in the Philippines, they'll be very grateful.
But one of those toys she purchased had actually already been donated.
Do you recognize that?
Yes.
That's a picture of this brown elephant.
Shame we're going to lose this guy.
Yeah. Among several jackets, pants, and toys W5 placed in donation bins earlier this year with trackers. Some of the bins appeared to support charities for needy Canadians, but we found 4 trackers that had made it 7,400 kilometers away in North Africa. Unexpectedly part of the worn clothing export market worth some $181 million. The trackers show the elephant went here to this Toronto thrift store, Market by the Pound. At the time, one of the store's directors was a woman named Milda Romanoff. She was also listed as the director of the Canadian Community Support Foundation, the CCSF, whose logo is on the bin the elephant went in. CCSF bins around the Greater Toronto Area say they're a registered charity, but records show its charitable status was revoked in 2018 after an audit. The CRA told Romanoff in a letter the CCSF had broken its rules by giving $29,200 to a numbered company, what the agency called an undue private benefit. When we called the company's number, it was no longer in service.
If it's not a charity, it's utter misrepresentation.
Kate Bain is the managing director of Charity Intelligence, a Canadian organization that researches and grades over 800 charities across the country.
This is a group, an organization posing it's fake. How would you know it's fake? There should be repercussions.
Corporate records show the director of the company the CCSF made that undue payment to is Giuseppe Seggia, Milda Romanoff's husband. Seggia has a criminal conviction from the 80s for cocaine and heroin trafficking and a conviction from the 90s for conspiracy to distribute cocaine in Florida. He was also found guilty of careless use of a firearm in the 80s. We reached Milda Romanoff by phone.
I do not own that store.
Oh, okay. What I'm looking at is some documents that say you're the director of a company that does.
I have nothing to say to you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, are you still... Market by the Pound says Romanoff no longer works with them. Sebastian says she understands that people will try and make money, but donations should go to the right place.
What happened with you is it went to a for-profit agency, and you bought it, and you donated it anyway.
Yeah, it should be given to the ones who really need it. So probably to the organization you gave it to, they might not be the right channel to give that help.
Thanks to Sebastian, our donation and her donation is on its way to needy people in the Philippines right now.
And tomorrow, John has exclusive reporting on how police believe parts of the industry have links to organized crime. Still ahead, the new warning to parents. A new warning today from the Canadian Pediatric Society urging doctors to regularly screen children from 4 to 7 for reading difficulties and dyslexia.
If we can actually identify as early as possible and start with the intervention program, it can really change. It can make amazing impact.
The group says the screening takes about 2 to 3 minutes and could make the difference between getting help early or struggling for years. A frightening close call on a busy highway involving the U.S. Vice President following a campaign stop this week in Wisconsin. A suspected drunk driver heading the wrong way passed within feet of Kamala Harris's motorcade. Police swiftly intervened. The 55-year-old was taken into custody and allegedly told authorities he was headed home after a night out and had no idea he was driving in the wrong direction. After the break, a crossing guard looks for guidance from the community he serves. A friendly face on the streets of Toronto has recently helped guide students to school every day, but now he's hoping the community can point him in the right direction. CTV's Scott Lightfoot explains.
Hi, good morning, Orlando. Hi, morning, thank you.
In this West End neighborhood,
Hi, morning, thank you.
James Makusa spends part of each weekday helping others.
Okay, you too, thank you.
But now he's hoping someone will be able to help him.
You too, guys, thank you. I'm here for green pastures, you know. Yeah. Yes, I'm here to look for new opportunities here.
Makusa moved to Canada from Zambia a year and a half ago. He spent his first months here living in a shelter. There, with the help of an aid organization, he found part-time work as a crossing guard.
Hi, good morning, thank you.
It's a job he enjoys, but it's also a job that makes living in this city next to impossible.
Yeah, you know, things are very hard. Yeah, things are expensive here in Toronto.
And so, almost non-stop, he's been applying for full-time work.
I've applied to Air Canada, I've applied to Amazon. Yeah, I've been applying to those. Yeah, Walmart, everywhere.
But so far, he's had no takers, even though he himself was almost taken when someone suggested he hire an agent to help him find a job.
They called me and they told me like to pay them, which was so much money. Like they told me to pay like almost 3,000 to, yeah, that's for them to put me, to find a job for me.
Fortunately, he didn't do that, but what he did do was take to social media, asking the community he works in if they might have any leads for someone willing to do almost anything.
I can do warehousing, I can do labeling job, I can do anything, packing, anything. I'm able, you know, I'm very fit. Yeah, I can do anything.
The post has received dozens of supportive replies, and now he's hoping his new community will come through to help him find work and help him keep his dream of a better life in Canada alive.
All right, no worries. Bye-bye, thank you.
Scott Lightfoot, CTV News, Toronto.
Everyone coming together. That's a snapshot of this Wednesday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night, and see you tomorrow.